It's my great honor to be here to talk about our Blue Waters Allocation Project. I'm Chunyuan Diao. I'm from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So the project is mainly about the Continental-Scale remote monitoring of invasive species dynamics through Petascale high-performance computing systems. So for our team, it's mainly working on the remote sensing data. We are analyzing different types of satellite data in order to monitoring the terrestrial vegetation dynamics. Specifically for this project, we are focusing on the species invasion problems. Because in the process, we need to process a huge amount of the remote sensing data. So we use Blue Waters mainly to prototype a parallel computational framework in order to handle the massive amount of remote sensing data for the large-scale invasive species monitoring. The invasive species we are particularly interested in is called the Saltcedar. It's an exotic shrub species that has invaded many riparian zones in the southwestern part of the United States. It has caused a lot of ecological issues, such as it can alter the stream hydrology, increase the soil salinity, and degrade the habitats for the native species. Today, this species is even considered as one of the worst invasive alien species in the world. Thus, mapping its distribution and monitoring spatial-temporal dynamics is very important to develop the cost-effective control and management strategies. Doing this kind of mapping, the monitoring work, the remote sensing does provide us a very powerful tool. So conventionally, usually we will acquire the remote sensing imagery and then train those like the machine learning or maybe the deep learning models in order to decipher the remote sensing imagery to determine every pixel in the satellite imagery what land covers it represents, whether like it is the invasive species, native species, or maybe the other land cover types. But when we train our machine learning models, we find the model performance is not satisfactory, has a lot of classification errors, mostly because of the spectral confusion between this invasive Saltcedar and the native species. If you take a look at the photos, both those species are shrub trees. So a lot of times they can be very similar to our human eyes, let alone the satellite imagery. So in order to improve our model performance, in our previous work, we try to investigate a more comprehensive set of the features that might help train the machine learning models in order to doing this species level identification, especially to incorporate the features in this phenological cycles using the time series of the satellite imagery acquired throughout the year. So after using those machine learning models, we find the most critical feature, the most important phenological stage to remotely identify this species is the leaf coloration stage, because during this time period, the Saltcedars, the leaf color change to a very unique orange-yellow tone and can be much easier to be identified, differentiated from especially the native vegetation. That is very important if we want to really doing this, the monitoring of the species evasion. Otherwise, it doesn't really make any sense to us. So we are thinking about it to expand it to this large-scale spatial-temporal monitoring, but we do encounter several challenges here. Just to put two challenges. The one challenge is ideally, if we could acquire the imagery during the leaf coloration timing across like the space and the time, we should be able to do this work. But this leaf coloration timing cannot really be predicted using the current phenological models. Another work is when we want to doing this really large-scale remote monitoring that will involve massive volume of satellite data that cannot really be adequately handled by the traditional remote sensing systems. So for the objective of this project, we aim to develop a parallel computational framework that can model spatial-temporal dynamics of this species invasion over the past 40 years. So specifically, we will first develop the computational algorithms that can model the leaf coloration stage of invasive Saltcedar using the satellite time series. And after that, we will devise a high-performance parallel system to prototype this data and the compute-intensive satellite invasive species monitoring system. So our study side, we aim to do the monitoring for the whole United States. But for this presentation, I will mainly focus on the Rio Grande River, especially the Forgotten River Ridge, because for this area, we have collected intensive field, we have done the intensive field studies in order to train and validate our models. So this is the one satellite imagery example we acquired for this area. So first, I will briefly introduce the leaf coloration computational algorithms we have developed in order to get knowing like every year, every place when the Saltcedar will change its colors. So to doing this work, we have developed two computational algorithms. One is called the multi-year spectral angle clustering model. Basically, for this model, it is used in the situations when we only have very sparse satellite time series acquired throughout the years. Because in a lot of locations, because of this cloud cover, so the satellite imagery that might be able to use within a year might be limited. So the second model we developed is called the Pheno-network Model. That is more suitable when we have a relatively dense satellite time series. So for those two models, they have been published. If you are interested in the remote sensing work, please feel free to take a look at those papers. So for this, the multi-year spectral angle clustering model, basically it includes three components. We have the time series spectral outlier removal, time series spectral clustering, and the time series spectral matching. So here I will use a very brief example to just introduce a little bit about this model. So ideally, when we have this satellite imagery, we have multiple pixels. For every pixel, we want to know the leaf coloration timing for the vegetation, such as in the year 2004, we might have like 6 images available for this specific location. And here we use the spectral information to represent the imagery. And for this model, basically, it will leverage all the imagery in the surrounding years, here including the 2003 and the 2005, to temporarily interpolate the fall phenology of the year 2004 in order to predict the leaf coloration timing. So more specifically, the key idea of this model is after getting rid of those outliers, we are trying to mix, sort, or synthesize all those spectral information across years together. Or in other words, we try to piece together all the snapshots of the phenology acquired across multiple years in order to recover the fall phenological process. And then we'll divide the similar spectral information into the cluster. So after we have that information, then we develop some spectral matching criteria in order to find which cluster will represent this leaf coloration timing. So here, based on the matching score, then we will have this leaf coloration cluster. So here we have like 2 images in 2003, one in 2004, one in 2005. They are all acquired in the leaf coloration period, even they are actually in different years. Because here we are interested in 2004, so we do use the imagery on the December 8th for this pixel. So we are doing the work for all the pixels in this imagery in order to know which imagery we should use in order to do this large-scale monitoring of the species invasion. So this is the first model. The second model is the Pheno-network model. Basically, for this models, actually, we want to introduce the complex network to the time series remote sensing because it had not ever been used before. So we develop a very innovative network representation in order to model the vegetation phenological process. So we do some work in defining the nodes as the spectral reflectance we could acquire on each day of the time series. And the edges will, connecting the nodes will be the spectral similarity between those spectral nodes. So by using those definitions, our aim is to construct some network model that has a very unique structure with 3 node groups, pre-transition group, transition group, and post-transition group. So our purpose is we want to have this transition group can represent the leaf coloration period, linking this the pre-transition that will be the leaf on stage, and the post-transition that will be the leaf off stage. So after that, we also develop a new network measure called the bridging coefficient. That is the ratio of the between centrality to the cluster coefficient in order to detect the nodes in the leaf coloration period. Usually, the nodes there will serve as the hub connecting the nodes across the phenological stages with a high between centrality value. And also for the nodes, the neighbors of those the transition nodes, usually they are sparsely connected to each other because of the rapid change of the spectral information during this period. So by using the models, our purpose is we want to generate the composite Landsat imagery. So the composite basically means we want to optimize our mapping accuracy because within a year we have so many images we could use. So which image will be the optimal, basically depending on our purpose, will be that leaf coloration period. So when we generated the composite imagery, like for one location, we might use the imagery on November 28th, 2004, while for the other location, it might be a totally different date. So in this situation, it's the December 14th, 2004. So when we use this composite Landsat imagery to train our machine learning models, we do have a significantly higher classification accuracy in detecting these species. So we are pretty happy with the model we have developed. And then we think about this large-scale mapping. Going to our second component of this framework is that high-performance parallel system. Here, just briefly introduce a little bit about the conventional remote sensing systems. Those systems tend to analyze the entire remote sensing imagery as a whole. So when we're doing the time series analysis, usually we need to load all those imagery into the system that will require very high memory, and also the scalability is not good. When we want to do this large-scale remote sensing monitoring, it can be very challenging because we involve the massive amount of satellite imagery. It has a very high demand for the computational resources. To prototype our high-performance parallel system, in order to do this work, when we design those leaf coloration algorithms, we intend to design them at the pixel level. So basically, it means that we treat every pixels individually. We want to explore all the information we can gather for that pixel from this spatial dimension, temporal dimension, and also the spectral dimension. But this pixel level design just to help us to facilitate this parallel process of this kind of the massive amount of data we can process. So this parallel system, based on this pixel level design, can decompose the remote sensing imagery into multiple subtiles to reduce the memory, to optimize the I/O operations, and also the computation time. More information about the parallel systems, we adopt a hybrid computation models including node level data distribution model. We are using the MPI, and the code level, the core level, the computation model using the OpenMP. So here for this the node level data distribution model, we have this the static side. We decompose it into the multiple tiles, and also we have a large number of the computing nodes. We partition them into different node groups, and we then further divide those tiles into the subtiles. For every node in the node group, it will be responsible for handling all the information of all the subtiles within that specific tile for the specific day, using the parallel file systems. And because we are interested in the time series information, so we will do this the redistribution of our data using the MPI. So make sure that each node will have the one subtile, but the entire time series information we could use for doing the leaf coloration computation model. And another component is for this core level computation model that is mainly used to doing this parameter calibration in our leaf coloration models, such as for our Pheno-network models. Usually we need to construct multiple range of the network models in order to find the optimal one that can model this leaf phenological process. So in this process, we leverage the OpenMP to doing this the parameter calibration in order to increase the computation efficiency while decreasing the memory requirement. So the reason we are using the blue water is definitely to facilitate the processing of the massive amount of satellite data with high spatial, temporal, and spectral dimensions, especially consider it offers us a very large storage space. We could access to a huge amount of computational resources, a large number of nodes, especially for the work that also involves very intensive I/O operations and also a lot of communications across the nodes. So this is definitely the sources we need to have in order to do the work. And here it shows the scalability of our parallel systems. We try to scale it from about 500 nodes to about 3,000 nodes using our parallel system. In this log scale, it seems have a relatively good scalability. And this is just briefly showing this Saltcedar Distribution Map. When we using the parallel systems in 2005, we could see the multiple states how this severe Saltcedar evasion issues, especially Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and also some southern California areas. And also here is more specific zooming in to the Forgotten River Ridge that we have the intensive field observation data. So we could see the over time, like from the 1985 to 2005, there's more and more areas invaded by the species with more reddish tone or much denser patches established over time, so indicating this invasive species kind of replacing the native vegetation over time. So to conclude our study, those the two leaf coloration models we have developed can model this leaf coloration stage of the invasive species, and for this the high performance parallel system can efficiently process the massive satellite time series with high scalability. And also, especially in the Forgotten River Ridge, we find the invasive species is displacing the native riparian vegetation over time and space. So those are the papers we have published relevant to this project. Finally, I want to acknowledge the support, especially the computational support from Blue Waters and also the technical support from the Blue Waters team. Without them, it is really impossible for us to do really the large-scale monitoring of the species evasions using the satellite time series. And also, I want to acknowledge the support from the SF and the University of Illinois to make this project much smoother.